Hi everyone, I'm Danielle Morris, and today this presentation will be going over how we are applying teaching methods for a crochet lesson. At the end of this presentation, you'll be able to create a slip knot and a single crochet stitch to begin your crochet projects. There will be written and picture instructions, a definition of terms, and video demonstrations. For this presentation, you will need a crochet needle, a matching yarn type, and scissors. For your matching yarn and needle, on the needle it will have the size and the matching yarn on the label, and this is important to match, so you're using the correct size of needle and yarn to each other. Some definition of terms that will be used throughout this lesson will be the working end, which is the part of the yarn that is attached to the main ball of yarn, the tail end, which is the part of the yarn that has been cut and does not connect to the ball of yarn, a slip knot or slip stitch, also referred to, and this is the beginning knot which the crochet needle connects to and is used at the end of rows, a single crochet stitch, which is the first type of crochet stitch that we'll be learning with the lowest amount of added loops or chain overs, and a chain over or loop over, also sometimes called a new loop, adds more yarn into the stitch and is when the working end of the yarn is brought over the crochet needle during a stitch. You can refer to these definition of terms at any time throughout the presentation. Here are the written instructions on how to do a slip knot with picture demonstration photos on the side, and I'll also walk through these during the demonstration video, but we're going to talk about them right now as well. So the first step is to grab the tail end of your yarn and place it over the top of your working yarn attached to the ball of your yarn. The second step is to place your two fingers inside the loop that was made, and this is shown in picture number 2. The next step is to now grab your working yarn, which is attached to the ball of yarn, with your two fingers. Step number 4 is to pull that piece of yarn in your fingers through the loop. Step number 5 is neck without letting go. Pull that little taunt. And number 6, you're going to be holding your new loop in one hand and the strings, both the yarn end and the working yarn, and pull taunt to form that slip knot. Next, you place your crochet hook into that loop you just created and pull that tail end tight so that it gets a nice connection to your needle. Here is the first video demonstration where you'll see I'm holding the piece tight. I pick those two, I turn it over, working my working end through the head and pulling that nice and taut without letting go. And now you can tighten up both those strings and insert your needle through that head. And now you have a working slip knot. We're going to show this slip knot demonstration one more time, just at a different angle. Again, the two strings, working one goes over the tail end, pulling that tail end tight, and then straightening out our lines with that nice loop so we can put our needle head through, pulling that tight so it's working, and then we have our slip knot on our needle, and we're ready. After we have our slip knot made, we can chain over, which is taking the working end over the needle, pulling the working end through, and then we're going to have a chain, and you're going to repeat that until you have the desired length, and we'll show that in the demonstration as well. Here is the demonstration for making a chain, which is after we had that slip knot on there. And so with the demonstration, it is looping over or chaining over, pulling through, chaining over again, pulling through, and doing this till you get that desired effect. It's always helpful to keep that working end out to the side so you know what you're chaining over. And then we can repeat this until we get the desired length. And you can keep checking your progress as you go as well. As you can see, it is the string that is the working end that's being pulled under. It's the one that's staying behind, and the one that was there is the one that's going over. And at the end of this, I completed 13 chains, but you could add more to make a longer project. This would be the bottom length of our project. Say it was a scarf, you can make it shorter if you're doing a different size, but that is how you make the chain. After we have our first chain, we are now going to be going back into our pre-made chain and starting that single crochet. So chaining one is just adding another length to it, and then we're going to insert our needle back into that first hook, the one that we just did, yarning over, pulling that yarn through, yarning over again, and then pulling both of the loops through, and this will make a little more sense during the demonstration. Here's a single stitched crochet demonstration, and this is after we've made our chain. We're going to go back into that first V right there, which is our last of the chain, making a little room to go through, looping over, that bottom one goes over, and then you chain over again, and then the two go over. And that's one single crochet stitch. Go into that next V through the loop, the middle one goes through, chain over, and the bottom two go over. Go into that next stitch, make sure you're not going to the same one that you just did, through, the middle one goes over, and the bottom two then will go after it. Continuing along with this, make sure you're always going to that next correct V. When you sticking your needle through, you're going to pull the one that you just went into over, and then go chain over again, and then those two go over again. And then we just continue all the way through our chain, which this is definitely faster than what beginners will go, but you'll get in the rhythm of it, and you can watch the beginning of the video again until we get to the end of this chain. And now we are at the back of our chain. Once you have finished your second row on the chain, or any row, you're going to loop over once, pull it through, and then tie that off, and then that is how you finish row. You always want to make sure that when you finish your row, you do an extra chain, as this will make sure you're not going to lose a stitch over time, because if you don't do that, then you can lose a stitch. So you always want to finish your row and then chain one over, and then that completes the row. Here is our demonstration of the second row of the single crochet, and this is important to note that once we are doing the second row, you're going into these V's, and when you're inserting your needle, you'll be going through both of the strings and pulling through and having it go through both of that V, and then chaining over and having the two go through, and that's the normal crochet, single crochet, but we want to make sure that we're going through that V, chaining over, and pulling that double through. And then we can continue on with our single crochet through our second row and continue this pattern through as many rows as we'd like our project to be. Once you have finished your project, let's say it's a scarf and you want to tie it off and not have to worry about it coming undone, you will cut the end of your working line so that it looks like this. You are going to cross over your slip stitch after you've taken out your needle, and you're going to put your finger through and then pull through that working line. And then once this is done, you can pull it tight. And now you have that starting line, which would be the tail end, and you have your working line, which has been cut off. And from here, to make those tails go away, we are just going to thread through all of the line. And this takes a little bit of time, and you just want to do this so that it doesn't get pulled out. Until that one's all the way thread through, and then you can thread through your tail end as well. And that's how you finish the project. Now that you have learned how to do a slip stitch, a single crochet, and make a chain, and learn the basic skills of crocheting, you can make all these great projects. All of these projects that I'm showing you have been done with a single crochet stitch, and you can use bigger yarns and different needles. And thank you so much for listening to my presentation on how to crochet. Here are my references for this lesson. Thank you.